The orbital station Nexus Prime hung suspended between three moons, its gleaming hull a testament to the uneasy alliance between a dozen species. Inside its diplomatic quarter, Commander Jack Razor Mitchell stood at attention, his compact 5'8" frame dwarfed by the towering alien officers surrounding him. His dark eyes remained fixed on Admiral Chen's holographic image flickering from Earth's command. "Commander Mitchell," Admiral Chen began, her weathered face betraying concern beneath professional composure. "What I'm about to tell you stays in this room. The Korvani Empire has agreed to peace talks. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." A ripple of tension passed through the assembled officers. The Korvani were legends of war, their empire built on the broken worlds of those who dared oppose them. Jack kept his expression neutral, though his enhanced combat instincts were already calculating angles and exits. With respect, Admiral ventured Captain Trax, the insectoid Zilani officer to Jack's left, his mandibles clicking nervously. "The Korvani don't negotiate, they conquer." "Times change, Captain," Chen replied. "Emperor Korthon has lost 3 legions to the Void Plague. Even the mighty Korvani need allies now." She paused, her gaze settling on Jack. "Which brings us to why you're here, Commander." Jack felt the weight of every eye in the room. At barely 5'8", he was considered small, even by human standards. Among these alien giants, he might as well have been a child. But he hadn't earned the calcine razor by being intimidated by size differences. "The Emperor has one condition for these talks," Chen continued. "His daughter, Princess Zurakai, will personally oversee the negotiations. And she's requested no. Demanded a human military attached to the Zilani captain's wings buzzed in agitation. Princess Zurakai, the Crimson Death, the destroyer of the Altair systems?" "The same," Chen confirmed. "A 7 feet tall, enhanced Korvani, battle physiology, and a kill count that would make a plague look merciful. She specifically requested someone with," and I quote, "proven combat experience against overwhelming odds." Jack allowed himself a wry smile. "Let me guess. My little dance with those 3 Draknari battle cruisers caught her attention, among other things." Chen's expression softened slightly. "Jack, I won't lie to you. Every other species has refused to send anyone. The princesses. Reputation. Well, the last diplomat who disappointed her was returned to his homeworld in 17 different containers." "Sounds like a real sweetheart," Jack muttered, earning a sharp chittering laugh from Trax. "This is no joking matter," human growled Commander Vorak. The massive Ursidian, whose bear-like features were twisted in disapproval. "The princess once killed a fully grown Titan-class warrior with her bare hands. For sport, you wouldn't last 30 seconds. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us." Back to the story. Jack turned to face the 8-foot-tall alien, his voice carrying the quiet confidence that had seen him through 100 impossible missions. "With respect, Commander, I've made a career out of lasting longer than 30 seconds against things that should have killed me." Admiral Chen cleared her throat. "The mission parameters are simple, Commander. Serve as military attached to Princess Zurakai during the peace negotiations. Keep her satisfied with human cooperation. The fate of the Alliance may depend on it, and if she decides she doesn't like me, then we'll try to ensure your remains fit in fewer than 17 containers." Chen replied without a trace of humor. "But your shuttle leaves in 6 hours. Dismissed." As the other officers filed out, many shooting Jack looks of pity or disbelief, he remained standing, processing the assignment. It faced overwhelming odds before pirates, hostile aliens, even a collapsing star. But serving as attached, too. A 7-foot-tall warrior princess with a body count higher than some wars? That was new. His tactical pad chimed with incoming files. Jack scrolled through the intelligence reports on Princess Zurakai, his expression growing more grim with each image. Security footage showed her in battle, a crimson-armored giant moving with lethal grace, her ceremonial war spear cutting through enemies like wheat. In every image, her face was hidden behind an ornate battle mask, leaving only her burning amber eyes visible. Admiring your new assignment? Jack turned to find Lieutenant Sarah Chuno, relation to the Admiral, leaning against the doorframe. The intelligence officer's usually playful expression was replaced by genuine concern. Sarah Jack nodded. Closing the files, come to say goodbye. Come to make sure you're not completely insane, she countered, moving into the room. Do you know what they call her on the frontier worlds? The Virgin Destroyer? Not because she... you know? But because no male of any species has ever gotten close enough to try. The last Korvani warrior who made a pass at her needed reconstructive surgery. On his entire skeleton. Charming. Jack began checking his equipment, muscle memory taking over as he inspected each piece. Anything useful in that intelligence brain of yours? Sarah's expression shifted, becoming more professional. Actually, yes, the princess requested you. Specifically, Jack. By name. That's unusual. The Korvani typically refer to humans as soft flesh, or prey species. The fact that she knows who you are suggests she's done her homework. Great. A 7-foot-tall killing machine has been studying me. That's not terrifying at all. There's more. Sarah pulled up a classified file on her pad. 3 months ago, long-range sensors picked up an anomaly in Korvani space. Their birth rates have plummeted. The Void Plague doesn't just kill, it sterilizes survivors. The Empire's dying, Jack. They need this alliance more than they're letting on. Jack paused in his preparations, the implications clear. And the princess, though she's of breeding age by their standards. One of the last fertile females of the royal bloodline, Sarah confirmed. The pressure on her must be enormous. Maybe that's why she's so... homicidal. I was going to say intense, but sure, let's go with homicidal. Despite the situation, Sarah managed a small smile. Be careful, okay? I know you've pulled off miracles before, but this is different. She's not an enemy you can outsmart or outfight. You'll need to find another way. Jack holstered his ceremonial sidearm, though he knew it would be useless against Korvani armor. I always do. The journey to the Korvani flagship Bloodfang took 4 hours through contested space. Jack spent the time reviewing cultural protocols and studying what little footage existed of Princess Zara Kai in non-combat situations. It wasn't much. The Korvani valued strength above all else, and their princess embodied that ideal to a terrifying degree. As his shuttle approached the massive warship, Jack couldn't help but be impressed by its brutal elegance. The Bloodfang was a kilometer of weaponized aggression, its hold decorated with the ceremonial trophies of 1,000 victories. This was the personal flagship of the Emperor's daughter, and everything about it screamed danger. Human shuttle, a guttural voice. Crackled over comes, you are cleared for docking bay 7. Any deviation from assigned flight path will result in immediate vaporization. Acknowledged Bloodfang. Following flight path precisely. Jack's pilot, a nervous young ensign named Torres, was sweating despite the shuttle's climate control. Sir, are you sure about this? No, Jack admitted, adjusting his dress uniform one final time. But I'm sure about the consequences if we turn back now. The docking bay was a cavern of military might, filled with fighters and assault craft that made human technology look quaint by comparison. As Jack descended the ramp, he was met by a squad of Korvani warriors, each standing over 6.5 feet tall, their bronze skin marked with ritual scars and battle honors. Commander Mitchell, the lead warrior, growled, his translator giving his words a metallic edge. I am Captain Throckter. You will follow. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not make eye contact with your betters. Do not show weakness. Princess has little patience for soft flesh failings. Jack fell into step behind the warriors, his trained eyes cataloging exit routes and defensive positions out of habit. The corridors of the Bloodfang were decorated with weapons and trophies from countless battles, a museum of violence that would have been beautiful if it weren't so terrifying. They passed other Korvani crew members, all of whom stopped to stare at the tiny human in their midst. Jack heard muttered comments in their native tongue, and his translator picked up fragments. Sacrifice, brave fool, won't last the hour. Encouraging stuff, The throne room, because what else could you call a space that massive and intimidating, took up an entire deck of the ship. Weapons of every conceivable design lined the walls, from primitive blades to energy weapons that hummed with barely contained power. At the far end, on a raised dais, sat a throne that looked like it had been carved from the hull of an enemy warship, and on that throne sat Princess Zerakai. Even sitting, she was imposing. 7 feet of perfectly honed warrior, her crimson armor form-fitted to a physique that spoke of decades of combat training. The ceremonial war spear across her lap could have served as a support beam in human architecture. But it was her presence that struck Jack most forcefully, an almost physical weight of controlled violence and authority that filled the room like smoke. Her face was hidden behind that infamous battle mask, wrought from some alien metal that seemed to absorb light. Only her eyes were visible through the angular slits, burning amber orbs that fixed on Jack with an intensity that made his enhanced reflexes scream danger. "Leave us," she commanded, her voice a low contralto that somehow carried both feminine melody and predatory growl. The warriors who had escorted Jack immediately withdrew. Out torqued her, shooting him what might have been a pitying look. Or maybe Korvani faces just naturally looked like they were witnessing an execution. Jack stood alone in the vast throne room, meeting those amber eyes without flinching. He'd learned long ago that showing fear to a predator only triggered their hunting instincts. Instead, he offered a crisp military salute, human style. Commander Jack Mitchell reporting as ordered. "Your Highness?" Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken evaluation. Jack held his position, parade ground perfect, while she studied him like a scientist examining a particularly interesting specimen. Finally, she rose from her throne in one fluid motion, and Jack had to consciously prevent himself from stepping back. Standing, she was even more intimidating, her armor adding bulk to an already impressive frame. She descended from the dais with the controlled grace of a hunting cat, each step deliberate and measured. She began circling him, and Jack remained at attention, though every instinct screamed at him to keep her in sight. He could feel the weight of her gaze, measuring, calculating, judging. "So," she said at last, completing her circuit to stand before him, "you're the human who destroyed 3 Draknari? Battle cruisers with nothing but a damaged corvette and what your people call aggressive negotiations. The official report termed it creative tactical solutions, Your Highness." Was that amusement in those amber eyes? It was hard to tell behind the mask. "Tell me, Commander, what do you know of Korvani culture?" A test, then. Jack had expected this. "I know you value strength above all else. That combat prowess determines social standing. That the weak serve the strong, and the strong protect the valuable. I know your people have never been conquered, never yielded, never compromised." He paused, then added, "Until now." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The princess's hand moved to her war spear, fingers caressing the weapon with casual familiarity. "Careful, little human. Your reputation grants you some latitude, but not immunity. With respect, Your Highness, you requested me specifically. I assume you wanted honesty, not flattery." She moved closer, close enough that Jack had to tilt his head back to maintain eye contact. This close, he could see the intricate engravings on her battle mask, depicting scenes of victory and conquest. Her armor hummed with some kind of energy field, and the air around her practically crackled with leashed violence. "You assume much? For such a small creature," she observed. "Your entire species averages barely 6 feet. You personally fall short even of that modest measure. By Korvani standards, you're practically a child. And yet here I am," Jack replied evenly. "Yes," she mused, beginning to circle him again. "Here you are. The human who turned a cargo hauler into an improvised kinetic weapon, who used Draknari pride against them, goading them into tactical errors, who survived when he should have died a dozen times over." She completed her circle, those amber eyes boring into his. "Tell me, Commander Mitchell, are you brave or simply too stupid to know when you're outmatched?" "I prefer to think of it as professionally optimistic, Your Highness." This time he was certain he saw amusement flicker in her eyes. She returned to her throne, moving with that same predatory grace, and settled back into it like a queen surveying her domain. "You will serve as my military attaché for the duration of these negotiations," she announced. "You will accompany me at all times when dealing with other species. You will provide human tactical perspectives when requested. And you will not disappoint me." The last words carried a weight that made them more threat than warning. "Understood, Your Highness. May I ask a question?" She gestured with one armored hand, a regal motion that somehow conveyed both permission and warning. "Why me, Your Highness?" "Could have requested any human officer. Why specifically request someone known more for unconventional tactics than diplomatic skill?" The princess was quiet for a long moment, those amber eyes studying him with an intensity that made Jack feel like she was looking through him rather than at him. "Because, Commander Mitchell," she said finally, "these negotiations are not what they appear. There are forces within the Empire who would rather see us burn than bend. Enemies who wear the faces of allies, daggers hidden behind smiles." She leaned forward slightly. Jack caught a glimpse of something unexpected in her eyes, calculation, mixed with something that might have been concern. "I need someone who can see the trap before it springs, someone who can find victory in defeat, and turn weakness into strength. Someone who survives when survival is impossible." "What, you think that's me?" "I think," she said slowly, "that you're either exactly what I need, or you'll be dead within the week. Either way, my problem will be solved." "Comforting," Jack processed. This information, his tactical mind already working through implications. The princess wasn't just looking for an attaché, she was looking for a weapon. Someone expendable enough to take risks, but skilled enough to possibly survive them. "When do we begin, Your Highness?" "We've already begun, Commander." She touched a control on her throne, and a holographic display materialized between them, showing the station where negotiations would take place. "The first session is in 18 hours. Wow. You will be briefed on all participating species, their likely agendas, and their weaknesses. Captain Throckter will show you to your quarters." As if summoned, the door opened, and the Korvani captain entered, somehow managing to look both respectful and disappointed that Jack was still in one piece. "One more thing, Commander," the princess added as Jack turned to leave. "The last attaché who failed me was sent home in pieces. Trust you'll strive to maintain better structural integrity." "I'll do my best to remain assembled, Your Highness." He thought maybe he heard the slightest exhale of amusement as he followed Throckter from the throne room. But with the princess, it was hard to tell if that was amusement or anticipation of future violence. His quarters, when Throckter showed him to them, were surprisingly spacious by military standards. Apparently, being the princess's attaché came with some perks, even if survival wasn't guaranteed to be one of them. The room was furnished in Korvani style, functional, austere, with weapon racks where humans might put artwork. "The princess has never taken a non-Korvani attaché," Throckter informed him, lingering at the doorway. "Most betting pools have you dead within 3 days. What's the longest anyone's given me?" "A week. That was mine." Jack had to smile at the warriors. "Honesty. Thanks for the vote of confidence." Throckter studied him with those inhuman eyes. "You faced the princess without flinching? That's more than most manage. Perhaps you'll surprise us all, human." After the captain left, Jack sat on the edge of the hard bunk, finally allowing himself to process what he'd gotten into. Princess Zerakai was everything the reports had said in Mara. Walking weapon with the political power to crush him without consequence. But there had been something else in their conversation, hidden beneath the threats and testing. It's a hint of something deeper. His tactical pad chimed with incoming files, the briefing materials the princess had mentioned. Jack began scrolling through them, noting the various species involved in the negotiations, their histories of conflict and cooperation. It was a delicate web of alliances and old grudges, the kind of political minefield that made combat look straightforward. But as he studied, Jack kept thinking about the princess's words. Enemies wearing the faces of allies. It seemed the greatest. The threat might not come from outside the negotiations, but from within. He'd survived impossible odds before by being unpredictable, by finding solutions no one expected. But this time, the challenge wasn't just staying alive. It was keeping a 7-foot-tall warrior. Princess happy while navigating political intrigue that could determine the fate of multiple species. Jack allowed himself a rueful smile. He'd wanted a challenge after his last assignment. It seemed the universe had decided to give him exactly that. Setting aside the pad, he began his evening routine, checking weapons, testing equipment, running through combat exercises adapted for opponents. Significantly larger than himself, the familiar motions helped center him, reminding him that regardless of the opponent's size or reputation, the fundamentals remain the same: survive, adapt, overcome, and maybe, just maybe, figure out what was really going on behind Princess Zarakai's battle mask. Because Jack had a feeling that the warrior princess's true agenda was as carefully hidden as her face, and understanding it might be the key to surviving this assignment. As he settled in for a few hours of rest before diving deeper into the briefing materials, Jack couldn't shake the image of those burning amber eyes. There had been something in them during their conversation, a glimmer of ... what? Curiosity? Evaluation? Or something else entirely? One thing was certain: serving as Princess Zarakai's attach was going to be unlike any mission he'd undertaken before. The question was whether he'd survive long enough to complete it. Outside his quarters, the Bloodfang hummed with the controlled energy of a ship preparing for something significant. And in her throne room, Princess Zarakai stood before a wall of weapons, her fingers trailing over ancient blades and modern energy weapons alike. "So little human," she murmured to herself, her voice soft behind the battle mask. "Let's see if you're truly as interesting as your reputation suggests." She selected a ceremonial blade from the wall, testing its balance with practiced ease. The negotiations would begin soon, and with them would come challenges that no amount of warfare had prepared her for. But perhaps, just perhaps, she'd chosen the right weapon for this particular battle, even if that weapon happened to be a small, audacious human who didn't know when to be afraid. The game was about to begin, and Princess Zarakai intended to win no matter the cost. The negotiation chamber aboard the neutral station. Harmony's Edge was a study in controlled tension. Representatives from 12 species sat around a crystalline table that adjusted its height and configuration to accommodate wildly different physiologies. Jack stood behind Princess Zarakai's chair, maintaining the traditional position of a military attach while his trained eyes catalogued every detail. The Rukari delegates' scales shifted colors with nervous energy. The twin Celestine ambassadors communicated in harmonic frequencies that made Jack's teeth ache. The gelatinous Moldrin representative occupied what looked like an elaborate fish tank on wheels. And at the far end, the Drachnary delegation sat in sullen silence. Their previous defeat by human forces clearly still rankling, Princess Zarakai hadn't spoken since the opening formalities. She sat like a statue carved from violence, her battle mask reflecting the chamber's soft lighting. Jack had learned to read her body language over the past 16 hours of intensive briefing. The slight tilt of her head meant she was analyzing.
Ow.
The microscopic tension in her shoulders suggested she'd identified a threat. The Korvani demand, too much Ambassador Vexion of the Drachnary, finally broke the silence, his reptilian features twisted in disdain. Access to the hegemony trade routes, shared technology, military non-aggression, Pax what do you offer in return, Princess? More death? More conquest? Jack felt rather than saw the princess's muscle coil. Before she could respond, probably with something that would derail negotiations before they began, he leaned forward slightly, murmured, pitching, his voice for her ears alone. "The Drachnary are testing for weakness. They want you to react with force, prove you're nothing but a warmonger." Her head turned a fraction toward him, acknowledgement. When she spoke, her voice carried controlled power rather than rage. "The Korvani offer what we have always offered: strength, protection, the guarantee that those who ally with us will never fall to external threats." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "Ask the Yelthari colony about the value of Korvani protection. Wait, you cannot? The Drachnary consumed them 30 cycles ago. Vexian's scales flared red. The Yulthari were weak. Yulthari were abandoned, Zarakai corrected, by allies who promised protection, but delivered only words. Korvani, do not make promises we cannot keep. Score 1 for the princess. Jack allowed himself a small smile as he watched the other delegates process this exchange. The Moldrin's tank bubbled with what might have been approval. Celestines harmonized in consideration. Perhaps the elder Trukari, delegate interjected. His colors shifting to diplomatic blue. We should discuss specific terms rather than past grievances. The plague threatens us all. Cooperation benefits everyone. For the next 3 hours, Jack watched the princess navigate the political waters. With surprising skill, she was still intimidating. That seemed to be her default setting, but she deployed that intimidation strategically. When the Celestines pushed for unreasonable resource demands, a casual adjustment of her war spear's position reminded them who they were dealing with. When the smaller species voiced concerns about Korvani expansion, she offered protection agreements that actually seemed reasonable. It was during a break that things got interesting. Jack was reviewing tactical assessments. On his pad, when he noticed the Dragnary delegation's security chief moving through the crowd with too much purpose, his path would take him behind the Moldrin ambassador, past the Trukari delegation. In hostile movement, 7 o'clock, Jack murmured to the princess, who was accepting a ceremonial drink from the Celestine ambassador. She didn't turn, didn't tense, gave no sign she'd heard him. But her free hand drifted to her hip, near a ceremonial blade that Jack had learned was anything but ceremonial. The Draconary security chief's hand moved to his weapon. Jack's combat instincts screamed. In one fluid motion, he stepped around the princess, drew his sidearm, and placed himself between her and the threat. I wouldn't, he said conversationally, his weapon not quite aimed at the Draconary, but clearly ready. This is neutral ground. Besides, you really don't want to see what happens if you make me spill Her Highness's drink. The security chief froze. The room had gone silent, everyone watching the standoff. Jack kept his expression pleasant, almost bored, though his enhanced reflexes were ready to respond to any aggressive movement. Stand down, Kreth, Vexian ordered from across the room, his tone suggesting this wasn't entirely unexpected. The security chief backed away, shooting Jack a look that promised future violence. Jack holstered his weapon with the same casual air, turning back to the princess. Apologies for the interruption, Your Highness. Diplomatic security can be so tedious. Behind her battle mask, those amber eyes studied him with new interest. Indeed, Commander, most tedious. When negotiations resumed, Jack noticed a shift in the room's dynamics. The other delegations looked at him differently now, not just as the princess's pet human, but as someone who had faced down a Draconary warrior without flinching. More importantly, they looked at the princess differently, seeing her choice of attach as a strategic decision rather than an oddity. You're human. Is well-trained, the Trukari delegate commented during another break, his scales shifting to patterns of curiosity. We had heard humans were ... fragile. Commander Mitchell is many things, Zarakai replied, her tone giving away nothing. Fragile is not among them. Coming from her, it was practically a ringing endorsement. Jack maintained his professional expression, though internally he filed away this first hint of approval from the princess. As the day wore on, he began to notice other things. The way she shifted her weight suggested old injuries, probably from battles the Korvani medical technology couldn't fully heal. Her left hand occasionally trembled so slightly most wouldn't notice, but Jack had trained himself to catch such details. Neural damage, battle fatigue, or something else. The fertility provisions the Moldrin ambassador gurgled through his translator are non-negotiable. All allied species must commit to genetic diversity preservation protocols. The princess went absolutely still. Jack had seen her react to threats, insults, and challenges, but this was different. This was the stillness of a predator deciding whether to flee or attack. The Korvani position on breeding is well established, she said, each word precise as a blade strike. We do not submit to genetic mandates from other species. But surely the Celestine harmonized, given the plague's effects, Some flexibility, no. The word cracked like a whip. The Korvani will handle our... reproductive challenges internally. Jack caught the minute hesitation. So the intelligence reports were right. The fertility crisis was a sensitive spot. He filed this information away, knowing it might be crucial later. The session ended with minimal progress on that front, though agreements were reached on trade routes and defensive pacts. As the delegations filed out, Jack noticed the Draknari, security chief watching them with undisguised hostility. He made a mental note to increase his vigilance. "Your quarters in 30 minutes, Commander," the princess ordered, as they prepared to return to the Bloodfang. "We need to discuss your performance." Well, that sounded ominous. Jack had survived. The day prevented an assassination attempt and helped navigate complex negotiations. In his experience, that usually earned commendation, not criticism. But the Korvani were not humans, and their princess was definitely not a typical superior officer. 30 minutes later, she stood at attention in her private chambers, trying not to stare at the collection of weapons that made her throne room. Look underarmed. The princess had removed her battle mask, and Jack got his first look at her face. He'd expected scars, brutal features to match her reputation. Instead, he found himself looking at a face that was almost breathtakingly beautiful in an alien way. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, and those amber eyes that seemed even more intense without the mask to frame them. Her bronze skin bore a few ceremonial scars, but they enhanced rather than detracted from her appearance. "You're staring, Commander," she observed, settling into a chair that looked like it could double as a siege weapon. "Apologies, Your Highness." I hadn't expected a monster's face beneath the mask. She almost smiled, almost disappointed. Jack admitted, "Oh, I'm learning that's not unusual where you're concerned." She studied him for a long moment. "You acted without orders today. Intervened in a situation that might have eliminated a political rival. You're my principal, Your Highness. Protecting you takes precedence over political calculations. It's even if I could have handled the threat myself." "With respect, Your Highness. Defending yourself would have played into their narrative. The violent Korvani, solving everything with force. By having your human attach handle it diplomatically, you demonstrated both strength and restraint." Now she did smile, a small thing, but genuine. "You think tactically? Good, I'll have need of that in the coming days." She rose, moving to a wall display showing star charts. "Tell me, Commander, what did you observe about the other delegations?" For the next hour they discussed the negotiations in detail. Jack found himself impressed by her political acumen, caught nuances he'd missed, identified potential allies and enemies with surgical precision. This was not the mindless warrior her reputation suggested. "The Draknari will try again," she said finally. "They cannot accept that a human bested them, and they certainly cannot accept Korvani dominance in these negotiations. I'll be ready." "Your Highness, I believe you will." She turned from the display, those amber eyes finding his. "You performed adequately today, Commander. Do not disappoint me tomorrow." High praise indeed from the princess. Jack accepted his dismissal and returned to his quarters, mind already working through potential scenarios for the next day's negotiations. He was deep in tactical planning. When his door chimed, expecting Throcktor with more briefing materials, he was surprised to find a young Korvani female, young being relative, as she still towered over him at 6.5 feet. "Commander Mitchell," she said, her voice softer than most Korvani he'd encountered. "I am Lorani, the princess's personal physician. She has asked me to examine you." "Examine me for what?" Lorani seemed uncomfortable. "Compatibility." Before Jack could ask what that meant, she produced a medical scanner and began running it over him. The device hummed and clicked, displaying readouts in Korvani script he couldn't read. "Interesting," she murmured. "Your genetic structure is more robust than typical human baseline. Enhanced reflexes, improved healing factor, increased endurance." "Military modifications?" "Something like that," Jack confirmed. Earth's super soldier programs were classified, but he suspected the Korvani had similar enhancements. "Your compatibility rating is surprisingly high." She sounded genuinely shocked. 85% genetic alignment, with Korvani physiology. That should be impossible. Compatibility for what, exactly? Lorani looked even more uncomfortable. The princess will explain if she chooses. I am merely to report the findings. She gathered her equipment quickly, Commander. A word of advice? The princess is not like other Korvani females. The pressures on her are immense. Be careful.
Yes.
Before Jack could ask what that meant, she was gone, leaving him with more questions than answers.
At.
Genetic compatibility? Why would that matter for a military attach? Position? His pad chimed with a message from Admiral Chen back on Nexus Prime. Still alive? Impressive. Watch the Drachnary intelligence suggests they're planning something. Also, interesting medical inquiry about human Korvani breeding compatibility came through channels related to your mission. Jack stared at the message. Pieces starting to fall into place. Princess's reaction to breeding protocols, the medical examination, the pressure to find compatible genetics among a plague-devastated population. Oh hell, he muttered. This isn't just about military advice, is it? Another chime, this time from the princess. Combat training, 0500 hours. Do not be late. Jack set his alarm and tried to get some sleep, though his mind kept spinning through implications. If the princess was considering him for more than just an attach role, well, that added entirely new dimensions to an already complex situation. At 0500 exactly, he entered the Bloodfang's training facility to find the princess already there. Wearing form-fitting combat gear instead of her usual armor, she moved through a complex kata with her war spear, each motion flowing into the next with deadly grace. You're punctual, she observed without breaking rhythm. Join me. Jack selected a practice weapon from the wall of staff roughly proportioned for his smaller frame and moved on to the training floor. He'd expected to observe, maybe receive instruction. He hadn't expected her to immediately attack. Her spear came at him in a blur of motion.
Thanks.
Enhanced reflexes kicked in, bringing his staff up to deflect barely. The impact sent shockwaves through his arms and drove him back 3 steps. Too slow, she criticized, already flowing into the next attack. You think like a human? Defensive? Reactive? Korvani survived by taking initiative. The next 20 minutes were an education in humility. Jack had trained with the best Earth had to offer, had fought enemies across a dozen systems. But Princess Zerakai was in a class by herself. She moved like liquid violence, every attack flowing naturally into the next, predicting his responses, and countering before he could fully execute them. But Jack hadn't survived this long by giving up. He began to adapt, using his smaller size and agility to avoid, rather than block, looking for openings in her patterns. When he managed to tap her ribs with his staff, the lightest possible touch, she actually laughed. Better, you learn quickly. She stepped back, spinning her spear into a resting position. Most would have yielded in the first minute. I don't yield easily, Your Highness, Jack panted, trying not to show how winded he was. No, she agreed, studying him with those penetrating amber eyes. You do not. That may serve you well in the trials ahead. Would these trials involve whatever your physician was checking my compatibility for? The princess's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air between them. Lorani exceeded her instructions. What did she tell you? Only that my genetics were surprisingly compatible with Korvani physiology. She seemed to think that was impossible. Zerakai was silent for a long moment, then moved to a bench at the side of the training area. She gestured for Jack to join her, a surprisingly informal action. What do you know of Korvani mating practices, Commander? Jack kept his expression neutral, despite the sudden shift in conversation. Limited information in the cultural briefings, Your Highness. I know Korvani typically mate for life, that genetic compatibility is highly valued, and that strong offspring are considered the greatest achievement a pair can accomplish. Clinical, but accurate. She gazed at the far wall, not meeting his eyes. What the briefings don't tell you is that Korvani females enter a biological imperative phase when they encounter a genetically compatible male who has proven his worth. It's called the Shektar, the burning time. Am I saving you from potential assassination today? constituted proof of worth by traditional standards, yes. Now she did look at him, those amber eyes intense, combined with an 85% compatibility rating, unheard of for a cross-species. Pairing my biology is ... responding. Jack processed this information with the same tactical analysis he'd apply to a combat situation. Is this why you really requested? A human attach? To find a compatible mate from a species no one would expect? No. The word was sharp, almost angry. I requested you because I needed someone unpredictable, someone who could see threats others would miss. The compatibility is an unexpected complication, one that could be ignored. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't ignore the Shektar commander. It can be managed, controlled for a time, but not ignored. And given the fertility crisis among my people, she trailed off, leaving the implications clear. Jack stood, pacing to the weapon wall and back, mind racing. This changed everything about his mission parameters. What do you need from me, Your Highness? For now, continue being my attach. Help me navigate these negotiations and uncover whatever plots are brewing. She rose as well, towering over him, but somehow seeming vulnerable for the first time. As for the rest, we'll address that if it becomes necessary, and if it does become necessary. She moved closer, close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from her bronze skin. Then we'll discover if human courage extends to all. Battlefield's commander. Before Jack could respond, alarms began wailing throughout the ship. The princess's demeanor shifted instantly from vulnerable to warrior, her hand going to a real weapon this time. Battle stations, she snarled. We're under attack? They raced through the corridors, Jack struggling to keep pace with her longer stride. The bridge was organized chaos when they arrived. Throcktor barking orders, while tactical displays showed multiple bogies converging on their position. Report, Zurakai commanded. Draknari Assault Force Princess. 3 heavy cruisers, multiple fighter wings. They're jamming communications we can't call for support. Jack studied the tactical display, his mind already working through scenarios. They're herding us toward that asteroid field. Classic ambush positioning. Agreed. The princess took her command chair, every inch the warrior leader. But they expect us to resist, to fight our way clear. What would you do, Commander? Something unexpected? Jack replied immediately. Drive straight into their trap? But launch breaching pods first. While they're focused on the Bloodfang, we board their command ship. Zarakai's smile was predatory. I chose my attach well. Throcktor, prepare a boarding party. Commander Mitchell will accompany us, Your Highness. Throcktor protested. Regulations state, regulations assume conventional warfare. She cut him off. Nothing about this situation is conventional. Arm the human appropriately. If he's to stand with Korvani warriors, he'll be equipped as one. As Jack was fitted with Korvani combat armor, modified hastily for his smaller frame, he caught Lorani watching from the bridge entrance. The physician looked worried, her gaze moving between him and the princess with obvious concern. The armor was heavier than he was used to, but moved like a second skin once activated. The weapon they gave him was a hybrid rifle blade combination that felt perfectly balanced despite its alien design. Ready, Commander? Zarakai asked, now in full battle armor, her mask back in place. Double quotes, always, Your Highness. She paused, one hand reaching out to touch his shoulder, the first time she'd initiated physical contact. Through the armor, he could feel the strength in that grip, but also something else. A tremor of uncertainty, perhaps, or anticipation. Stay close to me in the battle, she ordered. The Shektar makes me protective of compatible mates. Won't be able to help it. Understood, Your Highness. I'll try not to need protecting. Her laugh was sharp and bright. Oh, Commander, I'm beginning to think you might actually survive this assignment after all. It's a breaching pod launched moments later, carrying them through the chaos of ship-to-ship combat toward the enemy command vessel. Jack gripped his weapon and prepared for close-quarters battle, very aware of the warrior princess beside him and the growing complexities of their relationship. Whatever happened next. One thing was certain, his mission had just become far more complicated than anyone could have anticipated. and somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice wondered what exactly it would mean to be claimed by a 7-foot-tall alien warrior princess in the grip of a biological mating imperative. But that was a problem for after they survived the next few minutes. The breaching pod shuddered as it approached the enemy hull, and Jack pushed all other thoughts aside. Time to show the Drachnerion the princess what humans were capable of when properly motivated. The breaching pod hit the Drachneri hull with bone-jarring force. Jack rolled with the impact, coming up with his weapon ready as the cutting charges blew their entry point. Princess Zurakai moved like divine violence incarnate, her war spear claiming 3 enemies before they could react. "Left flank," Jack called, his rifle speaking in sharp bursts. The Korvani weapon felt alive in his hands, its blade extending automatically when enemies closed to melee range. What followed was controlled chaos. The Drachneri had expected a conventional Korvani assault, brutal, direct, overwhelming. Hadn't expected a human working in perfect synchronization with their warrior princess, creating angles of attack that shouldn't exist. Jack ducked under a Drachneri swing, its blade finding the gap in their armor that Zarakai's attack had created. She spun past him, her spear clearing the path ahead while he covered their 6. They moved like dancers, each motion complementing the other. The bridge, Throcktor roared, his massive frame bulldozing through enemy resistance. "Push forward." Jack noticed something wrong. Drachneri were falling back to Isley, giving ground too readily. "Princess," "It's a trap," she finished, grabbing him and diving aside as hidden panels opened. Revealing heavy weapons emplacements, they hit the deck hard, Zarakai's armored body shielding him from the worst of the impact. For a moment, they were pressed together, her amber eyes burning into his through her mask's viewport. "You saved me," she breathed, surprise coloring her tone. Returning the favor, Jack replied, then rolled free, his rifle finding and eliminating the weapon's operator with surgical precision. The battle for the command ship's bridge took 20 brutal minutes. When they finally breached the command center, they found Ambassador Vexian waiting with a full security detail. "Princess," the Drachneri leader hissed, "you should have accepted your empire's decline gracefully." "The Korvani don't decline," Zarakai snarled. "We evolve." The melee that followed tested every skill Jack possessed. But fighting alongside Zurakai, he felt something shift. Their movements synchronized beyond training or tactics. Something deeper connected them. She moved left. He was already covering right. When his ammunition ran low, her spear cleared space for him to reload. It ended with Vexian on his knees. Jack's blade at his throat while Zurakai's spear pinned his tail. "Yield," she commanded. "I yield," he gasped. "But you only delay the inevitable. The Korvani bloodline is dying. But you cannot fight biology." "Watch me," Zarakai growled. Later aboard the Bloodfang. With the Drachneri plot exposed and their ships retreating, Jack found himself in the princess's private chambers again. She'd removed her armor and mask, wearing simple training clothes. That somehow made her seem more dangerous, not less. "The Shektar is getting stronger," she said without preamble. "Fighting beside you, seeing your courage, ... She trailed off, pacing like a caged predator. "What do you need?" Jack asked simply. She turned to him, those amber eyes blazing. "I need to not need," she said fiercely. "I am Princess Zarakai. I have killed armies, conquered systems. I do not need anyone, but my body burns for you," she admitted, the words seemingly torn from her. "Every cell screams to claim you, to create life with you. The irony is perfect, the one male in the galaxy who makes my biology sing, and he's barely tall enough." To reach my shoulder, Jack stood, crossing to her. Even with her sitting, he had to look up to meet her eyes. "You know what I think?" "What?" she asked, vulnerability creeping into her voice. "I think you're afraid. Not of me, not of the Shektar, but of wanting something for yourself instead of your empire." Her hand moved faster than thought, catching him by the throat knot, squeezing, just holding. "Careful, little human," "No," Jack said softly, reaching up to cover her hand with his. "I've been careful my whole career. Careful got me a reputation for surviving the impossible. But sometimes, princess, the bravest thing you can do is stop fighting." Her grip loosened, became almost a caress. Don't understand what you're saying. Korvani mating bonds are permanent. If I claim you, it's forever. And our offspring would be the first human Korvani hybrid, a bridge between our species. Living proof that the future doesn't have to look like the past. You've thought about this. I'm a tactical thinker, Jack said with a slight smile. I consider all possibilities, including the one where a 7-foot-tall warrior princess and a stubborn human might create something unprecedented. She pulled him closer, her strength undeniable but controlled. The council will rage. Your people will call it treason. It will face challenges from both sides, so we'll face them together. Less ... double quotes. He paused, meeting her eyes steadily. Unless you don't want this. The Shektar might drive biology, but I won't be anyone's obligation. Zarakai laughed up, rich, genuine. Sound obligation? Commander Jack Mitchell, you infiltrate my defenses, save my life, fight beside me like a true warrior, and then have the audacity to make me want you beyond biology's demands. You are no obligation. You are my choice. She kissed him then, and Jack discovered that kissing a 7-foot-tall alien warrior princess required some adjustment in technique, but was absolutely worth the effort. 6 months later, the medical bay of the Joint Human Korvani Station Unity hummed with activity. Jack paced outside, his new ceremonial armor a gift from the Korvani Council, clicking with each step. She's fine, Throcktor assured him for the 10th time. Korvani births are easier than human ones. She's having the first human Korvani. Hybrid baby Jack reminded him, nothing about this is standard. The door opened, and Lorani emerged, her expression unreadable. Jack's heart stopped. Then she smiled. Congratulations, Commander. You have a daughter. A perfectly healthy, impossibly strong daughter who has already broken to medical instruments. Jack rushed inside to find Zarakai propped up in a bed designed for her proportions, cradling a bundle that seemed impossibly small in her arms. She looked up as he entered, her amber eyes bright with unshed tears. Come meet her, she said softly. The baby was perfect bronze skin with a hint of human pink, wisps of dark hair with silver streaks. And when she opened her eyes, they were a swirl of amber and brown that seemed to see everything. She's beautiful, Jack breathed, reaching out to touch his daughter's tiny hand. The baby gripped his finger with surprising strength. She'll be a warrior, Zarakai said proudly, but also a diplomat, a bridge, the first of many perhaps. Should we name her? Zarakai smiled. I thought ... hope, in both our languages. Hope, Jack agreed, leaning down to kiss his mate's forehead. Perfect. The door burst open, and Sarah Chen rushed in, followed by Admiral Chen and Matriarch Arara. Both leaders stopped short at the sight of the baby. By the void, Arara whispered, She's actually ... Perfect, Admiral Chen finished. The genetic scans show complete stability. She'll have the best of both species. The Drachnari are requesting audience, Sarah reported. Apparently news of the birth has spread. They want to discuss extended peace terms. Jack and Zarakai exchanged amused looks. Their daughter, less than an hour old, was already changing the political landscape. Tell them they can wait, Zarakai commanded. Today is for family. As the officials filed out, Jack settled on the bed beside his mate and child. Outside, he could hear celebrations beginning, both human and Korvani voices raised in joy. No. Regrets? Zarakai asked quietly. Jack looked at his warrior princess mate, then at their impossible, perfect daughter. Only one? Oh, I should have let you catch me in that first sparring session. Would have saved us both time. Her laughter filled the room, rich and warm and home. Hope gurgled in her arms, already reaching for the stars visible through the viewport. The first of her kind, but not the last. A living testament that sometimes the most feared warriors just needed someone brave enough or foolish enough to see past the armor to the heart beneath, and sometimes the tiniest humans could indeed make the mightiest aliens into something they never expected to be a family. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.